Might just be getting the safety because it's not very far out of the way. Because Orange also, I believe, did not check it either. So could be just something with, getting that safety. And just because it looks like we might have just had some technical difficulties here. So my name is Arusta. My co-commentator today is Drossi. This is the Link to the Past Randomizer, the Spoiler Log Tournament, Week 1, Sailor Net versus Orange. And we've also got a tracker behind the scenes pushing Mr. Scruff Ninja Tuna.
Oh, and Sailor Nep taking a relatively unusual route that usually is if you want to go to the potion shop. I don't know if she's just gone to. Oh, she picked up the mushroom. Now I see it on the tracker. Sorry, I missed the mushroom pickup and I was trying to figure out what this was about, but mushroom turn-in must have something important.
Meanwhile, Orange is showing us a sword there in Dark Cross.
And as you can see by Nep joining chat, that's one interesting thing about spoiler log races, that runners are perfectly welcome to watch each other, watch our restream, really, watch and interact however they want. This is live, there's no time delay.
Yeah, because the interesting thing about spoiler log races, in case anyone's here is not familiar with them, since this is the first week, is that you get a log which basically lists off everything you have in the race. So what the crystals are, what the pendants are, what items are required, where everything is. You have 15 minutes to review it before the race starts, and you sort of plan out your route ahead of time.
And those 15 minutes can be pretty frantic because not only do you have to figure out, okay, these are the crystal dungeons, these are the pendant dungeons, and you can see that this is already all marked on the tracker because the runners aren't going to do any map checks. You then have to say, okay, what items do I need? Where are those items? What's my best routing? How many safeties can I route in? Because you probably don't want to be beating the game on 3 hearts and green mail. So it's a lot of stuff to process in a short amount of time.
Absolutely, and Orange is going through Eastern Palace here, which is an interesting play because without Bo, will not be able to clear it unless Bo happens to be here. But there might be something here that Orange has routed in that he really needs to keep progressing through the seed.
Wow, French vanilla bow. That's when you're really happy it's a spoiler log, because if you had that in a regular open seed, that would just drive you up the wall because you don't want to go into Eastern without the bow, and the bow's in Eastern.
Yeah, but it is worth noting that with both a sword and bow, and then also lamp, even though that's not really required, Orange will be able and is going to just go here and clear, so should be getting our first crystal here within the next couple minutes even.
Meanwhile, Nep finds the glove in Ice Rod Cave.
And it is worth noting with Glove, Hammer, and Moon Pearl, that is enough for Dark World access. And pulling out that hammer looks like that's pretty much exactly what Nep's going to do here.
And that also means this probably won't be an Agaseed. I say probably because the runners already know if there's something important on Lumberjack, so we're not going to see Lumberjack if there's nothing important on it. And if there is, well, if they start going for Aga, you'll know there's something on Lumberjack. Wow, and our runners get their first swords from different sources.
And also half magic, which, I mean, I like the call by Nep there to pick that up. You normally have fewer safeties in this, and, you know, just going, it's like 15 seconds for that half magic, and it can really be helpful, especially with Fire Rod.
Yeah, just like Orange went and picked up the blue mail, which since you tend not to even get that first full row of hearts in spoiler, blue mail can be a really good safety as well.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that we mentioned this possibly before the stream went live. Both these are outstanding runners. Sailor Nep is currently top 10 in the ladder. Orange is top 50. So, I mean, both of them are both very experienced in dealing with slightly less safeties than you might be used to.
Wow, heck of a place to stick the flute. But that is obviously a nice find.
Yeah, it looks like Orange is going to pick up his glove here.
Yeah, Nep's going to activate the flute now.
Yeah, and we're seeing some speculation in chat. Since Nep seems to be putting off Eastern Palace, it's possible that Nep is intentionally trying to pick up Mirror first, and we'll do, rather than doing Eastern Palace alone like Orange did, we'll try to mirror over and sort of combine those.
Yeah, it's actually kind of fascinating because, at least in the spoiler log races I've watched this week in the first week of Swiss, I haven't seen this much routing divergence between the two runners this early. Hey, and welcome to everyone who just raided from SpeedGaming. So it looks like Nep's off to back of escape now. I think we saw this on Orange's side kind of as we were getting set up, so I don't remember what was in there. I think there was a sword and dark cross.
There was Sword and Dark Cross. I don't remember if there was anything else.
Oh, so Orange did not go to the back of escape, and Nep did not go to Dark Cross now to get that sword. Interesting. Because, yeah, Orange doesn't have the Cane of Burna. And Nep also has a whole lot more money, which means that there could be something on Zora, or she's just trying to be, you know, really careful with her money, making sure she can pay off Kiki, have money to buy potions and everything. We did have a... Go ahead.
I was also going to say one little subtle thing there is also picked up a quarter piece of heart, which, you know, is not something you normally pick, like you wouldn't go out of your way for, but when you're already there, it costs you basically no time. And that's something even some runners will do, is try to route in, when am I going to get my fourth piece of heart? When might I need a health refill?
Yeah, and I was also going to say that, you know, planning rupee collection is not something you're used to if you don't play a lot of spoiler log, because, you know, in a normal race where you don't know what the chests hold, you'll just, in the normal course of things, open enough chests to get money and bombs and arrows and things like that. And the other day we actually had a racer who didn't quite plan their rupees well enough and was about 10 rupees short getting to pod. So knowing where a few 300 rupee chests are can be pretty useful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even beyond rupees, like even something like arrows and bombs, you really want to make sure you know where you can find them in dungeons, under pots, all that. Because I mean, I know I've seen some spoiler log races where people run out of bombs or all that because you don't have that normal, hey, there's 3 bombs here, 3 bombs there, that gives you subtle refills as you go along.
Well, Nep is filthy rich, so I don't think she's gonna need any more money this seed.
Nep also does not have any arrows.
Oh, and to address chat, no, that's not who I was referring to. So yeah, Nep's definitely gonna need, I mean, there are several pots with arrows. She is gonna need to be careful, but she is a top runner, so I'm sure her aim is quite good.
Yeah, meanwhile, Orange just going quickly here through pod. One subtle thing to note about routing dungeons like this in a spoiler log seed is you also need to keep in mind key count and what you need to get into certain areas.
Right, especially in a dungeon like Pod, you don't want to go out of your way for any more keys than you need. There's the big key, which we can't really get to Helmasaur without.
Nep finishing off Armos there, so Nep has her first crystal at 15 minutes 49 seconds.
Ooh, looks like Orange is going for the hammer yump to get something out of the big chest.
Which that makes a lot of sense because it is worth noting. Well, there you go. That going the normal way would cost them an extra key. So using Hammer Yump, even though it takes a few seconds to set up, is probably faster than opening an extra chest just for that.
And he in fact sets up the Death Warp there.
Yeah, nice subtle piece of routing there. If you notice that Orange released the fairy before going through the door, you always want to do that if you're setting up a Death Warp so that it doesn't accidentally run into you right when you get your health low.
And also of note, even though Swamp is a pendant, of course we'll need that hook shot post Moldorm too, unless the runners want to hover. But it may also be our Death Mountain access, depending where the mirror is.
Yeah, I'm not familiar enough with Orange to know if he knows how to hover. I know Nep does know how to hover, but doesn't pull it out all that often, so...
It's also the case if Desert's not boots locked and the boots are in some god-awful place, these runners may wind up doing a bootsless seed.
Yeah, and I mean, since you have to come to pod here anyways, it's not really like it's costing you a whole lot of time to go out of your way to pick it up, especially if you know Hammer Yump like both runners do.
Yeah, and especially with that big key location all the way in the back. On the one hand, Orange had a bit of trouble with those terrapins. On the other hand, they dropped so many hearts that it's as if he didn't get hit at all. So I'm guessing we'll see Skullwoods and Thievestown next. Those are both full clearable at this point. Oh, good. Nep aimed that bomb well. I was worried she had overthrown it.
Yeah, meanwhile, a nice Helma fight there on Orange's side. And also worth noting, there was a full heart container on the boss itself, which is always nice to have just right in your route that you know you're guaranteed to get. So someone in chat asked how far people are able to route within 15 minutes. I know, of course, Sailor Nep's running the seed right now, so I'll answer for her. So in my experience, typically what a lot of top runners can do is they can get most of their route put up. Really, what people will do first is they'll look for the crystals and pendants, which are right at the top of the log. Then you sort of figure out, okay, what do I need to do to get to each of those pendant crystals? So like, for pod, you need a hammer. For Skull Woods, you always need fire rod, things like that. Then you sort of figure out where those are. And then some people like to come up with a full route. Some people like to just have all the item locations and sort of make it up on the fly. The top tier runners at planning out their spoiler logs will actually be able to do, like, even to the point of getting big keys and all that. The other thing you can do, since you're allowed to have the log open as you play, is you have it open in another window and, hey, I know my overworld routing, I've got it down so I can do it almost without thinking, open it up on the other screen and just see, okay, where are the big keys, where are my small keys within each dungeon.
I would just like to point out that since Sailor Nep did not do the hammer jump and instead went through the dark maze, she decided to conclude her hookshot grab by blowing herself up.
Yes, and I would also like to note that hopefully there is a key somewhere close here.
Oh, yeah, I didn't realize she hadn't. I saw she still had one key when she did that death warp, but I didn't realize she hadn't unlocked the middle door yet. And so, yeah, she's going to the back without a key. I'm not sure how that's going to work.
Meanwhile, Orange picking up mitts there in Paradox Cave.
So again, if that turns out to be buried somewhere kind of deep, we needed that hook shot early out of out of pod to get the Titan's mitts. And looks like Nep did realize her key issue, so back to start, grab another key.
Yeah, on Orange's side, also worth noting in the upper half of Paradox, Orange picked up a pre-filled green potion and a bunch of smaller items, and Quake, which Quake is required for Misery Mire and Turtle Rock.
Ooh, Orange going into Hookshot Cave, so I guess that Hookshot's really gonna get a lot of use. Oh, so yes, the Hookshot was absolutely required, no way to get up there without it.
Yeah, and it is worth noting Hera is a crystal, so Orange can go up here and do Hera just right as they pass along here.
Looks like something might be on Spec Rock. Oh, how about that?
Yeah, that's nice to have. So you'd have to think probably Nep is going to, once finishing off Pod, sort of make the same play Orange did, because Death Mountain is absolutely loaded in this seed.
And again, thanks to that early hookshot, Orange can set up the Harapot. Ooh, nice job. And down goes Helmasaur on Nep's side, while Orange is having a bit of a stare down with Moldorm. So, it just occurred to me that Death Mountain logic is actually kind of fascinating because you needed the hookshot to get to the east side, to get the Titan's Mitts out of Paradox, which allowed you to then get to Dark Death Mountain, where the mirror was in Hookshot Cave. Then you could mirror right back, and you needed that mirror to get the boots off of Spec Rock. So quite a logic chain there.
Yeah, and I'd just like to shout out the palette shuffle there on Nep's side. I like the pink Death Mountain. Looks friendlier.
I'm not used to seeing palette shuffle in non-Randomizer seeds. That would be interesting, though, a spoiler log Randomizer tournament.
That would be interesting. I do have to admit, I'm not actually sure. I don't think like the log actually tells you anything about the enemies, even in Randomizer. So
No, so you could plan your routing, but you wouldn't know what you were going to hit. I mean, I would assume it would have to tell you at least what the bosses were so you could plan, what items you'd need for each boss.
true, but that doesn't mean, I mean, you could still end up giving yourself something where it's like, oh, I can totally do front of escape for, a sword, and not realize there's a giant crystal roller or something blocking your way.
So Orange is already about to grab his fourth crystal, and we're not even half an hour in.
Yeah, that is definitely one of the things about spoiler log seeds is because you're not checking all sorts of extraneous chests, the times on these can be very, very. I will say, though, it looks like a lot of Orange's attacks have gotten on the spikes, so gonna have to be careful here.
And right as you say that... Well, since Nep's been behind, this will give her an opportunity to make up some time.
Yeah, sorry, Orange, didn't mean to curse you there.
I don't remember how the chests in Hype Cave are labeled, but it's not exactly intuitive because when we saw Orange go in there, he went and was like, is it the one on the bottom? And then kind of turned around, and Nep just started opening them until she got the mirror. So, yeah, some of these things are labeled in non-intuitive ways, so you know the general location, but it's hard to figure out the specific chest.
Yeah, and that was a good call there by Nep to mirror to the light world, because that line of fireball, I believe, probably would have killed her. And if not, there's still one on the west side of the bridge, so definitely better safe than taking the overworld death.
Oh, and she's not even doing Hera now.
Well, it is worth noting that you do have to come back. I don't believe Orange found anything in there. And you do have to come back for Ganon's Tower anyways, so it's fairly easy to make that your 7th crystal.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it doesn't really matter. It was just... I think Orange did it since he was up there anyway. But yeah, I wonder what Nep will grab that Master Sword, and I also kind of wonder where the other 2 swords are.
Yeah, so it's an interesting thing here is that Orange did Skullwoods first. Looks like Nep is going straight to Thieves Town and doing Thieves Town first.
We may get a bit of a high five in here. Oh, now that's interesting. Orange pulled the small key, so he's planning to go to the big chest, while Nep skipped it, so I wonder what's in the big chest. Or else there's the possibility that Orange read the log quickly and didn't remember which was the small key and which was the big key.
Yeah, that's entirely possible because, especially as our tracker, Mr. Scruff Ninja Tuna, shoutouts to keeping us on track, points out that the compass chest versus the map chest is something that's often, if you haven't run vanilla in a long time, like casually, you probably don't know which chest is which. Because they're, you know, in normal rando, it never matters, and even if you're doing like NMG or something like other speedrun, you would never open either chest anyways.
It's also the case, though, that if you know you're in the lead, you might stop to pick up extra safeties just to make sure that you can maintain your lead and aren't going to take a death at a bad time.
Yeah, absolutely, because, you know, knowing that you've got a lead, because essentially right now Orange has a 2 crystal lead, a little behind here in Thieves Town, but two full crystals cleared. And also has a couple more safeties with that blue mail and some extra hearts.
And that's even with the Death to Moth. So Nep has 4 hearts and green mail, though she did get that blue goo, and if you're really good at the blind script, you can get through all this without taking any damage. So far, so good. Wow, excellent job on Nep's side. Looks like... just as I was saying that Orange is doing just as good a job following the script, he takes a couple of hits, but doesn't matter, blind down.
Yeah, and I mean, that's one of those things, like, you definitely, if anyone out here is watching and doesn't know the blind script, at least learn the first, 2 phases. The 3rd phase, if you get off script, you can usually sort of YOLO effort your way through, but knowing those first 2 phases really, really helps. So some interesting thing here. Looks like Nep is delivering the Smith, whereas Orange, despite being right there, fluted right away from it.
Oh, vanilla sword on the Smiths.
Yeah, so what that tells me is I would guess Nep at this point that was just her getting her second sword and has no intention of ever picking up that one in Dark Cross.
Right, and that also probably means that the final sword is going to be someplace really easy for our runners to get at, because the difference between Master Ganon and Tempered Ganon is big enough that, you know, if the final sword weren't someplace obvious, it would be worth Orange's time to go to Smith's, and it would be worth Nep's time to go to Dark Cross.
Yeah, I mean, especially Orange, since they were literally right there, and it would have been, what, 3 screen transitions, something like that. And to answer a question in chat about the presets for the color palettes, I think there's a variety they can choose from, but it's a pretty huge variety, so...
Oh, wow. So there was definitely a logical order to the dungeons here, because you needed Skullwoods and Thieves to open the pyramid to get the red cane.
Yeah, and I'll also point out it was very heads-up play there by Orange to get a free potion refill while he was standing right there.
Right, that's another thing that's in the spoiler log. It tells you what each of the great fairies will give you if you throw in an empty bottle.
Yeah, to clarify, the palette shuffle just gives random colors. They are all colors, I believe, that already exist in the game somewhere, if I remember right. Or if they don't, like, they're not just inventing completely random rainbow colors or something like that. Like, it's colors that you could see somewhere, but it does not mean that it'll all agree.
Ooh, Nep runs out of magic, but does take the blue goo in short order, and Orange got the tempered out of Meyer's shed, so that answers what I was saying about that last sword upgrade has to be someplace really easy to get at.
Yeah, and it is worth noting that with the red cane, which they just picked up, Orange is basically in go mode. It's going to just do run through desert real quick here, run through Meyer next, and then go straight up to the tower.
Yeah, kind of fascinating with, what the pendant dungeons were. We don't need to go fetch an ice rod out of anywhere. We don't need to get the flippers. We only need one medallion, though we would have only needed one medallion anyway. And then the only remaining question is, are silvers somewhere that the runners can easily pick them up?
Yeah, and I will note, in case anyone in chat is not aware of that, we commentators and our tracker, Mr. Scruff Ninja Tuna, all have access to the spoiler log. I generally don't look at it while I'm commenting, but since we're not going to see anything in Swamp or Ice Palace or Turtle, Swamp just had basically a couple pieces of heart and then complete garbage. Same thing, Ice Palace had the book and then otherwise garbage. And Turtle Rock had just money. So there was literally not even anything like, oh, this could be a nice safety or anything in any of those optional dungeons.
Yeah, one of those seeds you really like if you're playing regular open mode, because, you're going to dive crystal dungeons as much as you can. And other than the interesting logic chain on Death Mountain and the French Vanilla Bow in Eastern, there really haven't been any horrible item placements this season.
Yeah, and I mean, really, there's not even, since you couldn't get Red Cane early, there hasn't even really been an option to do any of those, to get lured into any of those pendant dungeons. Yeah, and looking at the log, the flippers are hard locked in Ganon's tower, so if you were playing this normally, you wouldn't even have the chance to be like, well, maybe I could make the gamble of doing Ice Palace or Hookless Swamp or whatever you wanted to do.
Well, that's super convenient. It would be a great open seed. I do wonder about Nep's decision not to get that blue mail, because with 5 hearts and green, she is really playing with fire once we go into Mire and then GT. I mean, I guess with that blue cane, you can do a blue cane Vitreous fight. It's awfully laggy, but it works. So where's the Mire big key today? I haven't looked to see. I'm guessing map chest by the switch flip. Nep having a bit of trouble here with land mode. She's going to take the 3 cycle. So Orange still has a pretty good sized lead here. Tower of Hera and almost all of Mire, but you know, both of these runners are still on fairly low health. It's pretty easy for either of them to take a death. Anything could still happen.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Of course, we would never root for a death, but it is one of those things like, you know, especially if Orange died like on Vitreous, because that sets you back a huge amount, or potentially even somewhere on the Ganon's Tower climb, because that is a huge costly death.
So our tracker, Mr. Scruff Ninja Tuner, is remarking this could be a sub 50, depending where that GT big key is. If it's someplace quick, yeah, this could very easily be sub 50, which is an incredibly good time for a spoiler race. You know, you normally expect them to be somewhere between 50 to an hour and even up to an hour 10 if the items aren't placed very well.
Yeah, meanwhile, Orange showing off a very nice Vitreous fight there, showing off the strategy where you take damage from the goo itself rather than the eyeballs. So then you basically are able to do spins and use your iframes to knock down the eyeballs super quick. Very nicely done.
And that is Orange's 7th crystal. Now, since the runners know where the big key is, we're not going to guess the big key by number, but if you want to guess a location in GT Basement for the big key, by all means.
Though I will say, I don't know if Orange is watching the restream or watching Nep's stream. If Orange is aware of the amount of lead they have, we might see him open up a chest or two on the way. Because I haven't looked at the log to see where things are, but with the amount of chests in Ganon's Tower, there very well might be a nice safety, a preloaded bottle, silvers, something like that could really help Orange out.
Yeah, I mean, you just named two of the basically three things Orange would go for. He might go for a full heart container if there's one that's not too far out of the way. I don't see him really getting red mail since he already has blue.
I mean, or Cape could be a nice safety as well, since it does have half magic, and Tempered Sword could make your phase 2 of Ganon super easy if you wanted to grab it.
Also true.
But again, those are the kind of safeties you might go slightly out of your way for, but you wouldn't really go too far.
Yeah, like Silvers with Tempered Sword will save you half a minute, maybe a minute in Ganon fight, depending on how effective your Silverless fight normally is. So, you know, you could go a room or two out of your way for it. Speaking of Silvers, I think they were right there in a race I commed earlier this week.
Oof, and that is a rough death there by Nep.
Oof, yeah, that's what I was saying about going into Mire with 5 hearts and green mail. It is tough, even for a really good runner.
Yeah, and she had the potion out, but looked like didn't get the chance to use it before getting knocked out.
She's paused. I wonder if she's debating a forfeit just because she's so far behind? Yeah, she actually has forfeited, unfortunately. So we'll get her in here with Orange, hopefully, when Orange finishes. I'm still not even quite sure how they wound. I mean, I know they had a lot of route divergence early, but I'm still not sure how that route divergence came out to Orange having such a commanding lead to begin with, because it didn't feel like Nep was really doing anything wrong for the first, half hour.
Yeah, I mean, I think really, like, outside of that unfortunate death. Ooh. That's a dangerous thing to go under, be invisible under the thing when you have 1 heart.
Yeah, I think Orange is going to go into the, this, I'm blanking on its name, but the one that tells us that bonking was intended by the developers, because that is literally the only way you can get in here.
I think they just call it the refill room or the restock room. Personally, I'm just glad that the developers of the randomizer decided that, hey, it's bonking that was intended to be in here rather than bomb jumps, because you can't get there via bomb. But that'd be a lot more of a pain if they'd put bomb jumps into always logic.
And yeah, as Nep's remarking in chat, I had forgotten about the mushroom, but because it was before the runners had the flute, she, took a swim over to turn it in. So that definitely ate up some time.
Yeah, but I'll also say that outside of that death on Moth, Orange has executed fantastically throughout this race.
Oh yeah, the big key was a little bit too deep for all that for it to have actually been a 50-minute seed, but it's still going to be sub 55 if he does everything cleanly from here on out. Wow, that was pretty nice. Gets the man. Oh no! Of course, I jinxed. He was going through that room. Now, we did not see the powder this seed, so apart from, I'm not, I think Orange has red goo in his bottle and that's it, so he has one health refill and that's really it.
Yeah, and since as we're getting to the end here, if anybody has any questions about stuff we didn't see or where things are, now's the time to ask, chat. The powder was at Lumberjack, which, yeah, it makes sense why no one went for that one.
Yeah. That is not work you're doing for your safety. And even if there had been something at Magic Bat, given where the cane and the mushroom were, you would have just fake powdered it instead of getting the powder off of Lumberjack.
Yeah, absolutely. And the flippers, which were locking Ice Palace and Swamp Palace, were in the big key chest of Ganon's tower.
Ooh, was that a triple, or were two of them too close together?
I think there were two too close together.
Yeah. Because otherwise that would have done it. Oof. Be careful, Orange.
Yeah, and so Nep's showing off that same strategy where you take damage intentionally from the water rather than the eye.
Only she's also using the blue cane for invincibility. So Orange is probably gonna need that potion soon because he's on one-hit KO right now.
Yeah, it is worth noting Orange did not go down and pick it up, but the tree right beneath the bottom of the pyramid does have a guaranteed fairy in it if you dash into it.
Wow, those are some nice hook shots. Perfectly. I jinxed him again. Oof, another bad hit. Which is also why a lot of the times you never know about these races. You know, if Nep had only been a minute or two behind, Orange taking that death to Ganon and, you know, having to be careful here in the second go through could have made a difference. But here we are, phase 4, 1 arrow in. Oh, it was green goo, not red goo. I misremembered.
I think Orange did get a red goose somewhere because he got one from the waterfall or not waterfall, the Fat Fairy.
Did he use it in Mire, maybe? Because he has 2 empty bottles now.
Don't know, but apparently didn't need it. Get your GGs in chat. And finishing with an official time, well, we'll call it an official time of 55 minutes and 48 seconds because the one in SRL adds the 15 minutes for study time. But very, very nice. Orange moves to 1-0, while Sailor Net moves to 0-1 in this first week of the Swiss. And we're going to see if we can get them in for an interview real quick here.
And since this is Switch, those records determine your matchups for next week, so Orange will play another 1-0 player. Nep just dashed down the hole because why? But we do have Orange in here with us. GG.
GG.
What did you think of that seed?
I couldn't tell if this was a good seed or a bad seed, considering where the items were.
Seemed generally like good placements. I mean, you didn't have to go into Swamp or Ice or TR.
I mean, that much is nice and all.
What didn't you like about the item placements?
Well, for starters, there was a bow in Eastern, and it was impossible to do like a pod Eastern sort of thing.
Aren't you glad it's a spoiler race then?
Absolutely. I was freaking out this whole lead up into the spoiler tourney.
And we also have Sailor Nep in here with us. GG.
GG's. I've already talked a little bit about what happened to me in chat, but you know, it's one of those things. Like I said, getting a government alert during the study period really just threw me off. I think for like a minute, I just kind of like got distracted, and so that was not good.
Yeah, it happens. But hey, we've got what, 7 weeks here, so you still have 6 more weeks. You know, the same mode. They're all regular open 7-7. So.
Yeah, so I'll definitely be more aware next week that if I see something listed as being a mushroom, that doesn't mean go get the mushroom and turn it in. Oh, you know, there's mistakes that just happen.
And I will remember to unbind my plus key into for next week, so that I don't have any accidental false starts and have to hard reset.
Oh, we actually didn't get the stream go live for about a minute, so we didn't even see that happen. I didn't realize that.
Oh.
So what exactly happened? You hit the wrong key, started early, had to hard reset?
Yeah, because while I was during the study period, I was just marking the points where I'm going to save and quit. But as I was typing S plus Q, well, that plus is also binded to one of my buttons. And that was starting the file, so I decided to just hard reset to try and, I guess, undo the mistake.
Oh. Well, it didn't seem to hurt you.
It was fun, but man, I got a little confession to make. That was my first time ever doing a spoiler race. I signed up for this like, I don't know, about a month ago, and I totally due date 11:59 p.m. this.
Well, that's really impressive then. I mean, you routed in enough safeties. You got the blue mail, you got a few extra hearts.
I have Kern to thank for doing that live broadcast of how to do a study session.
So actually, Nep, had you planned to get more safeties, and then because of that mushroom thing, you felt behind, so you were just gonna do it on as little health as possible, or were you always just gonna go through on really low health?
I wasn't too worried about trying to get extra safeties because my thinking was this route I've got, this already gives me Cane, Half Magic, a bottle. Everything where I'm feeling like I'm going to be really threatened in direct combat, I'm going to be able to use the safeties. So I wasn't feeling too worried. Honestly, the scariest part of my route as far as I was concerned was Helmasaur. If I hadn't been super far behind, I would have gone to Vitreous, pulled out the cane immediately, and had a little bit of a slower fight with 100% victory rate. So there was always a plan there. Even in GT, there were always ways I could bail myself out if I wanted to. If I felt, I was looking at a closer race, I could maybe just get a potion, and that way, if I need to, I can pop for health. Ganon, I'm not worried about. I've played enough of the super quick preset that I've had to deal with worse.
Yeah, the blue cane's sure nice. Though actually that was interesting routing difference between the two of you. Nep, you went into the back of Escape to get that blue cane. Orange, you just went to Dark Cross to get that early sword, and Nep, you decided instead to get the Master Sword more or less vanilla out of the Smiths.
I decided that I would rather have an earlier Master Sword than wait until the Smiths. Because originally my plan was to just ignore the Dark Cross Sword and get my Master off the Smiths, but I felt that having earlier Master would be more beneficial in the long run. So I decided to skip the Smith one.
And on the flip side, you didn't want to grab Burner for a safety?
Not really. I would have loved to have Cape, but I'm not going to Zora Ledge. Especially with no flippers.
Yeah, with the flippers being deep in GT.
Not happening.
Yeah, that it was kind of funny with, the flippers and the powder, and some items were just in locations where it's just an absolute no.
I didn't even think to look up where the powder was.
It was in Lumberjack.
Oh yeah, not happening.
Yeah, the more I was looking at the spoiler log during the first parts of it, I was like, this seed looks like it has potential to be really fast or potentially really slow, depending on where the stuff is, but then the other shoe never dropped, so to speak. It was all just real easy to grab.
Wow, that 52 collection rate is incredible. I mean, spoiler races are typically in the 60 to 70 range. Sometimes you see high 50s, but 52... I mean,
that
maybe
is
I
the
saw
lowest I've ever
once,
done myself.
But yeah, GG's on that. That's really impressive.
GG.
GG's.
I thought I was totally done after that moth death.
Yeah, that was one of the things, like, we saw that moth death, and other than that, though, like, and that was one of the things we were talking about, is that other than that, like, your execution was fantastic this entire point. Like, you know, after Net made a couple of those unfortunate early calls, like, you just never gave a chance to catch up.
I'm very happy to hear that because I didn't see any of what was going on. I only had my stream set up, my game on one monitor, and my copy-pasted route on the other. So I was totally oblivious. So I'm very happy to hear that. GG's, though.
Yeah, I think if I had not made the log-related errors that I did, I probably would have been a little more focused in pod, and I probably would have then maybe been able to even get ahead with the mock death. But you know, as played, I can't change how it did happen, and so it was a very well-earned, well-played win.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing to note, since this was only the first week, is I'm in that 0-1. I don't know if you guys have looked at the challenge yet, but the 0-1 bracket looks surprisingly deadly. So good luck there. And I mean, of course, the 1-0 are fantastic as well. So I mean, there's no easy wins in this tournament. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I think they tried their best to match up runners by strength even this first week, based on what the admins knew about what runners had what strengths. So, yeah, there are some good runners who went up against other good runners and are now 0-1 and are going to have to go up against the other good 0-1 runners next week. And speaking of future schedules, we have 3 more races tomorrow, and that'll do it for week 1. So be sure to tune in here for the next race, which is going to be at 10:45 tomorrow morning Eastern Time on SG Prime Channel. Ninban versus Literally Jen, and then we have 2 final ones tomorrow evening, and then we'll be coming out with the schedule for week 2.
Yeah. So if do either of you have any final thoughts on the seed, or?
Oh, well, I'll just say thanks for having us and putting on a good restream. It was definitely fun being able to tune in and listen to it during the race for once. I kind of don't really have the, I guess, like, monitor space for it in terms of how I want to set up my screen, so I just sort of let that happen by tuning in on my phone app. And so it was nice being kind of a radio show version of what was going on while we were going.
Yeah, that interaction is kind of a cool aspect of Spoiler Log. You know, we never know who's whether one or both of the runners are watching the restream unless they start messaging chat like you did, and you know, you guys are also free to watch each other and everything. And on that note, also, do give these runners both a follow. As we said at the outset, they're both really great runners. We've got 6 more weeks of Swiss followed by brackets, so I'm sure we haven't seen the last of either of them.
All right. Well, absolutely. Thank you very much, Sailor Nep. Thank you, Orange. It was a pleasure commentating your race. Good luck to both of you in the remaining weeks of the tournament. My name is Arusta. My co-commentator here was Drossi. Thanks as well to Mr. Scruff Ninja Tuna for doing the really hard work behind the scenes of pushing buttons and tracking and keeping us in line. Thank you, everybody, for watching here on Speed Gaming 6. Have a good night.